Everybody, it's 6:30, so if I could ask you to take a seat. We did have 200 people signed up to be here tonight, maybe a weather delay for some of them, but the senator does need to leave at 8:15-ish, so we're going to go ahead and get started. In accordance with our rules, we always start with honoring God first, and I'm going to ask Pastor B.J. Sutherland to come give the invocation.
Thank you. I'll stand right here, if you don't mind. You know, everyone, these are some perilous times we've been in. Over the last few years, a lot of troubling issues have plagued our country, our states, our counties, our communities, and our neighborhoods, our families, all kinds of things, sicknesses and troubles, and neighbors coming against neighbors. And here lately, our communities have had some pretty tough things happen here in Oconee and in Pickens County. And just here lately, in August, we had an officer, Matthew Hare, who was tragically struck and killed by a train in the line of duty. And just last week, we had another officer, Corporal Lucas Watts, who was shot and is critically injured. And this is just a couple of things that our servicemen who protect us have had to endure lately. Not just that, with our leaders having to make decisions. Is this on? Yeah. Tough decisions. Statewide and nationally, stories like this happens every day. Fighting crime left and right. Ladies and gentlemen, the leftist ideals are coming against us hardcore. The enemy is running rampant in our nation and in our communities. And we have to stand up against those things. And I'm here to say we need intercessory prayer for our leaders, for our government officials, for our police chiefs, for our police officers, for our fire departments, for our EMS. We need to be in constant prayer for them. Thank you. Thank you. In Psalms chapter 2, verses 10 and 11 says, "Now therefore be wise, O kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling." This is a key thing. We need to fear the Lord with trembling and what He can do. What He can do, good and bad in our lives. What He can do for us and against us. We need to have our faith and trust in He who can solve all issues that we have. Amen? We need to be praying for our leaders who are making the decisions to be wise and to be diligent in seeking the Lord God Almighty. In 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14 says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and heal their land." We need to be praying, guys. We need to be praying to the Lord, seeking Him. Our leaders need to be seeking Him. We need to be seeking Him. All across the world, the enemy's running rampant. Look what's happening in the news we're seeing every day. The fighting in Israel, the fighting in Ukraine, the fighting overseas everywhere. It's coming out more and more daily. So we need to seek His face. We need to be on our knees in prayer, diligent prayer for all these individuals and for our communities to rise up and take what's ours back from the enemy. If you can, let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for allowing us the opportunity, God, first and foremost, to be able to be here on this rainy Tuesday night. God, thank you for allowing our senator to come and to be able to give his time to speak to us tonight. Lord, thank you for the men and women that protect us and serve us day in and day out. From our police to our fire, our EMS, to those who are on boards and commissions, who are elected to serve us and to make decisions for us. Thank you for what you're doing in their lives. God, we pray, God, for them. We pray for the hard decisions that they have to make. We have to pray, God, each one of us in our hearts, on our knees, at our bedside, at the altar, God, for forgiveness of our sins, Lord. And Lord, I, for one, repent from my sin, from my wicked ways, Lord, to seek your face and to be in your presence, God Almighty. Lord, I pray for the families of those that have fallen, those who have served us, who've given their lives and are critically injured right now, Lord. I pray for your mighty hand to be upon them. Lord, you can heal those who are sick, those who are injured. Lord, we're already seeing you work. God, and let our eyes be open for what you have for us in the future, God, in the path that we have to walk. God, I pray for tonight. I pray for Senator Graham. Lord, I pray for wisdom for him going forward from here into the future and all the decisions that he has to make, Lord. I pray for your blessing upon him. I pray for a blessing upon his counterparts and all the government, Lord. We love you and we honor you and praise you, God, Lord. And I pray also for the boldness and the courage within each one of us to stand up against the enemy, Lord God, in Jesus' name, and do us right. Father God, I just ask for your blessing for tonight, Lord. Let tonight be a good night of information and wisdom. We love you, honor you, and praise you. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
I know you're looking up on stage and you see two familiar faces, but I've got a third familiar face for us tonight. If you were at the Trump campaign, you saw this young lady lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and she was kind enough to come do it for us here tonight. Grace Newman.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I just learned tonight that Joey Hudson had my role in, was it Greenville County? Greenville County a few years ago. So the third thing we do at Republican events is we recite the creed. And if you haven't heard it, it's some of you standing up. You're going to show me up? If you know this by heart, you know it better than I. If you don't know it, some of these words should sound familiar. I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon. If I can seek opportunity, not security, I want to take the calculated risk, to dream and build, to fail and to succeed. I refuse to barter incentive for dole. I prefer the challenges of life to guaranteed security, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom for beneficence, nor my dignity for a handout. I will never cower before any master, save my God. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, to think and act for myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, to face the whole world boldly and say, I am a free American. All right, with that, just going to go over a few formalities and I'll get off the stage and let the reason you came here speak. First, I just want to say thanks to the Golden Corner Young Republicans. That's who's selling the cookies and coffee out in the lobby there. They, along with some of us, will be cleaning up tonight. So if you could kindly, if you packed it in, please pack it out. Obviously, I want to thank my peers at both Oconee and Anderson counties for helping put this together. Terry Meyering was an absolute star in organizing all this. And obviously, I'm very grateful to these two men for making time out of their busy schedule. I really appreciate Joey doing this. I want everyone to understand a few things about how tonight's going to work. You were asked to submit questions. Terry, Jonathan, and I took them, and obviously there were a lot of overlapping questions, and we want to get as many answers as we can in 90 minutes or thereabouts. So obviously if there was overlap, we did our best to sort them out and simplify them. And Senator Graham did not see those questions before tonight. Okay, I gave the questions to Joey.
He keeps glancing over here trying to read them.
No cheating, all right? So, and lastly, I'm just going to brag a little about my minor superpower here. Most people don't know I have it, but I can't read all your thoughts, but I can read some of them. And as I was watching you come in the lobby today, I didn't see one person thinking, I wonder what the guy behind me thinks. Okay, we're all here to hear the senator's answers to your questions from his lips to your ears, okay? So if you express some joy or a little bit of disappointment in some of the answers, do so briefly, do so politely, and I hope that's all I have to say about that, okay? All right, thank you both. Take it away.
Thank you, and it is a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Thank you all for braving the weather. Boy, I came over from Greenville earlier and literally and easily had to pull over for a minute. Trash cans flying across the road, that type of thing. So glad that you braved the weather to be here tonight. One quick thing, many of you have said, well, where did your radio station go? And many of you have had very kind comments missing me in the mornings. If you don't know, Salem Media sold 94.5 The Answer. That closing took place at the end of October. And so, sadly and disappointingly, that programming went away. Mike Gallagher wanted me to be sure that you know, though, that you can still listen to him on his app. Just search and download the Mike Gallagher Show app. Same thing with Dennis Prager, Charlie Kirk, Sean Hannity, Sebastian Gorka. All of our fabulous hosts are still available to listen to online. And I hope you'll join me on my podcast as well. Just go to joeyhudson.com and search for the podcast and subscribe to that. So that's the answer to that. Appreciate all of you who listen over the years. Senator, we'll jump right in. Thank you again for being here. And as Bob said, we have a list of questions here. I'll go through them as quickly as we can. I'd like for you to take about 10 minutes, though, just as opening remarks and give us an overall view of what's happening in our nation's capital.
I think the prayer said it all. Where'd the preacher go? You should have took up an offering. I was ready to give. One, I was born in Central. Anybody know where that's at? I went to Katichi on vacation at the beach. But, I grew up here. Went to Anderson. The first McDonald's in this part of the world was in Anderson. Grew up in Central. My dad owned a restaurant, liquor store. Sorry about that, Reverend. We met the same people. And a pool room. And that's where I grew up. I'm the first in my family to go to college. My dad was a World War II veteran, came along late in life. But I know what it's like to work in a small business. My parents couldn't get sick because if you didn't open up, you didn't get paid. Thank God for the blue laws. Sunday was the only day we had off. If you own a restaurant or pool room or liquor store, you have to show up and go to work. So that's the background I came from. I can't believe I'm here as a United States Senator. Only in America does this happen. I went to Daniel. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a pilot. In the Air Force, that didn't work out. Why am I telling you all this? I want you to understand where I come from and sort of what makes me me. By the time I went to Carolina, couldn't get in Clemson. That makes all the Clemson people feel good. Bottom line is, by the time I got out of college, both my mama died when I was a sophomore, and my dad died 15 months later, and I had a 13-year-old sister. So here's what I can tell you. I got a tough job. The hardest job in the world is being responsible for somebody else. So my life turned upside down. If it weren't for my aunt and uncle who lived over in Seneca, I wouldn't be here talking to you. They never made over $25,000 in their life. And I just want to thank all the people who helped me get on this stage. This is Thanksgiving. I got a lot to be thankful for. So, and all of us do too. So let's talk about an election we can't afford to lose. Now, you're here on a Tuesday night before Thanksgiving. It's raining and cold outside. You care about your country. The only way I can get people to come to anything is give away Chick-fil-A, and I thought about that tonight. Chick-fil-A will do it, Reverend. That's Jesus' chicken. I'll drive across town to eat at Chick-fil-A. So we got 3 Senate seats that are held by Democrats where Trump won big. Ohio, West Virginia, and Montana. Are y'all interested in this? Okay. Now, if we pick up those 3 seats, we take back the Senate +1. What does that mean? That's an insurance policy against socialism. If we're in charge of the Senate, all the crazy stuff doesn't happen if we did lose the White House, and I don't think we will. First thing, how many of you got insurance? Good. Well, we need some political insurance out, Joey. We got a map that's the best we'll have in 30 years. 3 red states with Democratic senators, and if Trump's the nominee, DeSantis, Haley, we should win Ohio. We should win West Virginia. Trump won by 42 points, and Montana, he won by 16. So I think and pray every night that we don't screw this up. We got Arizona, we got Michigan, we got Pennsylvania. There's 7 Senate seats in play where we could win as Republicans. It matters that we have a Senate majority. That's the insurance policy on judges and the most radical agenda if they want it all. So I'm going to end on this. If the Democrats had the House, and we got a 5-seat majority down to 4, redistricting is not favorable for us, so we're going to have a hard time in 2024 with the House. I hope we can hold it. The best bet to pick up a body, I think, is in the Senate. If we lost the House and the Senate, and Biden or some other Democrat got reelected, here's what they would do. They would abolish the 60-vote legislative filibuster rule. You know what I'm talking about? Puerto Rico and D.C. would be a state in a year. There'd be 4 Democratic senators in perpetuity. They would abolish the Electoral College. That means the popular vote elects the president. We hadn't won the popular vote in 5 elections as Republicans. They would pack the Supreme Court. They will wipe out all you and I have done to get a conservative Supreme Court. They go from 9 to 13. They would do this pretty quickly. They would structurally change the way America works to seize power. The only thing standing between us and that outcome is the 2024 election. I think Biden is very beatable, don't you? I've known him for 30 years. When he was sharp, he wasn't. Nice man, but I'll tell you this, I've never seen the world on fire like I see it today. Weakness breeds aggression. We'll talk about issues, but I'm going to close this out. Have you made up your mind who you're going to vote for in the Republican primary coming up in February? If you have, raise your hand. If you're undecided, raise your hand. Think long and hard and pick wisely. Just want to say this. Nikki Haley, Tim Scott are from our state. Proud of both of them. Tim's done a heck of a job, and Nikki is really acquitting herself well. Ron DeSantis, I think, is a good governor. I'm for Trump because no fault in anybody else. I just like Trump. You know, I don't dislike anybody else. Now, what happened with me and Trump? Well, you know, we had a rough start of it. I was one of the 16 people he beat. If you don't remember me running for president, it's really not your fault. It didn't last that long. What happened with you and Trump, everybody says? Well, we found common ground. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, we play a lot of golf. We like that. I've come to like him, and he likes him. So that pretty much gets us through the round of golf. So I don't know who's going to be the nominee. I think Trump's got a good chance, but I know this. We got a good chance of winning the White House. There's about 5 or 6 states that matter. People are afraid, Reverend. Women who were down on Trump are going to have a different view if he's the nominee. You may not like what he says or how he says it, but you better like what he did because he did it right, I think. And I think these other people would too. I really do. I mean, the streets are on fire. If you turn your back on the cops, defund the police. I mean, dumber than dirt, right? I grew up in Central. That's dumb as dirt. Letting Putin get away with Ukraine, think it won't affect the world's crazy. The Iranians, how many of you believe the Iranians had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it? I do. How many of you believe God blesses those who bless Israel? I do. We're in biblical times here, pal. And America needs to stand up and be counted. So this election is really, really a big deal. If we can win and get back the Senate and take back the White House, we get to pick the judges for 4 more years. That's a good thing, right? We can turn this around. We can secure a broken border. We can bring order to chaos. And one thing about Trump, and I'm sure it'd be true about the others, but particularly about Trump, they were afraid of him. I want the bad guy to be afraid of my president, don't y'all? I told the Chinese guy, if you're not afraid of him, you're crazy, because I'm afraid of him. So, bottom line is, we live in dangerous times. I'm honored to have this job. Rex, would you stand up? We have Rex Rice, State Senator. Thank you for coming, Rex. He's a working man. He's a businessman. He's in the state Senate. Thank you for what you do. But I want to take your questions. But the reason I wanted to start with winning is because if you don't win in politics, it matters, right? If you want boys to quit playing in women's sports, you better elect people who think that's a bad idea. We're electing people who think that's a good idea. I'm going to make a prediction. We're supposed to have a big election in 2022 and fell short. I think there's going to be a big election in 2024. I think the average American feels like the country they grew up in no longer exists. I think people feel that the country's gone crazy upside down. Boys playing in women's sports, defund the police, all this crazy stuff. Stop producing oil so you have to buy more from people who hate your guts. All of this stuff is coming home to roost, a world on fire. From a Republican point of view, this is the best chance we'll have in decades to take back the House and the Senate, win the White House. God bless you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Senator. Before we leave that, on that last thought, we thought that 2022 was going to be a good year too. So, look, I'm encouraged to hear you say that 2024 is going to be a good year. Tell us why you think, what's different in 2024 than 2022?
Okay, how many of you are pro-life? Here's what I think. Everybody blames the 2022 election on abortion. I don't. I blame it on not having a position on abortion. Here's what I believe. I believe the states should decide the rights of the unborn. After Roe v. Wade was overturned, the Supreme Court said the decision about life should be in the hands of elected officials, state and federal. That's what's in the decision, the Kavanaugh concurring opinion. When you asked a Republican after Roe v. Wade was overturned, a lot of them said, what do you think about abortion, build a wall? No, you talk about the rights of the unborn, unashamedly, right? Compassionately. So I'm offer a bill that says at 15 weeks in the birthing process, we should draw a line as a nation. It becomes a human rights issue to me. At 15 weeks, folks, a baby can feel pain, suck their thumb, and you have to provide anesthesia to operate on the child's life. The French limit abortion at 14 weeks. I think the idea that we lost in 2022 because of abortion is wrong. I think we lost on that issue because we didn't have a position, and we didn't tell the American people firmly that the Democrats want to abort a baby up to the moment of birth, and that's barbaric. That's like China, North Korea. So that's one issue. The other issue is turnout. We just didn't turn out. How many of you been told wait till election day to vote? You ain't hear me. Vote whenever you can. Vote legally, but whenever you can. I think we got caught not playing the game right when it comes to voting. We didn't have a coherent answer on abortion. I think that's all going to change. I think the states have changed the laws to have a better voting system. And I'm hoping the presidential nominee of the Republican Party will look Joe Biden in the eye and say, wake up, Joe. That's a joke. Wake up. Why do you want to abort babies right up to the moment of birth? That's why I think we're going to win.
You mentioned election integrity and some of the things that the Democrats have done, early voting, stuffing the ballot box with mail-in. So talk a little about the things that have changed that you believe will prevent that from happening
I
again.
left off the parade of horribles. HR 1 was introduced in the House under Pelosi that would federalize all elections. Okay? It would do away with voter ID and institute ballot harvesting at a federal level. That'd be the end of conservatism. Let the states run these elections, right? We do a pretty good job here in South Carolina, but COVID really hurt us politically. There are a lot of laws changed, and we didn't object when the law was passed. We waited till the election was over, and we got our pants down, to be honest with you. So now we have Arizona and Georgia have changed the way you vote by mail. When you go vote in person, Joey, you have to show an ID, right? I am who I say I am. You need to have a system like that that allows mail-in voting to be as secure as actually showing up. So there have been some changes in Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia that I'm hopeful that we're going to get ahead of this, and I'm hopeful the Republican Party is going to play the game to get our people out to vote, right? Vote as soon as you can, legally.
Thank you. Question that was submitted, and again, I'm just going to go through the list of questions that were submitted. We'll get through as many as we can. A lot of talk these past couple of weeks about a possible government shutdown. The House, you guys have averted that up until this point. The question is, what's the downside of a government shutdown if Republicans could use this as a leverage point to shut down the border and lower unsustainable spending?
Every government shutdown, we get blamed because the media is not fair to us, right? Thank God for Fox and Newsmax and a few other things. But is that camera on? I'm going to look into it and make some news tonight. Listen, I like governing. I don't mind doing political compromise when it makes sense. But I'm not going to send any money to Israel or Ukraine until we secure our own border. Now, I am all in for Israel. I was over there 5 days after this attack. What they did, I cannot tell you because there are children here. Most brutal attack since the Nazi Holocaust. Hamas is evil incarnate. To our friends in Israel, do what you need to do as long as you need to do it. We got your back. Just get it done. Now, they want $14 billion. I'd give them more if they needed it. Because the same people that killed the Israelis on October the 7th would kill you if they could. Do you believe that? They're radical Islamists. They would kill you unless you bend a knee to their God on their terms. And if you don't get that, you're missing a lot. Getting out of Afghanistan was dumber than dirt because they're all going to come here. So, I don't mind helping Ukraine because Putin won't stop, and we ain't lost one American. We finally got an ally who will fight. Ukrainians been fighting like tigers. But I can't tell you that I'm going to help them unless I help ourselves. Our border is completely broken. Do you agree with that? I mean, we've had over 3.6 million encounters at the border, the highest in American history. Over 600,000 gotaways, and only God knows where they're at and what they're up to. 172 people on the terrorist watch list. Now, how did this happen? Biden undid everything Trump did. Remain in Mexico, remember that? Trump was smart in his own way. People are not going to pay $10,000 to a coyote or a human smuggler to show up in Mexico and be told you got to wait here 5 years for your hearing. That cut it off overnight. Biden changed that policy. And the people running our border system, they could care less about securing your border. This is the best chance we've had to get some control out of chaos. So I'm telling you right now, the government is funded up till January, the 9th, I think it is. And I don't want it to shut down. But we're not going to send money of our American taxpayers overseas until we secure our border, and I dare Democrats not to work with us, simply because the American people, 75 or 80%, want their border secured. This is a nightmare. How easy would it be, Joey, for a terrorist from Afghanistan, you name the place, to walk across that border and kill a bunch of us? The drugs, fentanyl is the leading cause of death from 18 to 35-year-olds in this country. It's all coming from where? China through what country? Mexico. Now, I hate to be talking about Trump, but Trump told the Mexicans, if you don't shut it down, I'm going to put a tariff on everything that comes across. He told the Chinese, if you keep ripping us off, put tariffs on your products. That's the only thing these people understand. So whether the government shuts down or not in January, Joey, depends on whether or not we can get a deal on border security. I will do short-term funding deals, but I'm not going to do money overseas. I'm not going to do any long-term funding of the government until we fix our asylum system and our parole system, which is the magnet leading to this.
A follow-up, as far as the border security, a recent NBC poll, you probably saw it, released in the last couple of days, shows that American voters across party lines are in favor of bolstering security on our border. The survey finds that roughly 3 in 4 registered voters, 74%, support more funding for security along the border of Mexico, including 93% of Republicans believe that, 74% of independents, and 58% of Democrats say send the money to the border rather than Ukraine or other countries, secure our border first. What part of that do the Democrats not get?
Well, who are the 24% who think it's okay? Who are the 7% of Republicans? So the bottom line is, this is the best chance we'll have to get an outcome we need. Okay? I'm not waiting to the 24 election to secure our border. We got a chance now, let's take it, okay? It's not about money. You can spend all the money you want, it's about policy. Democrats don't mind spending money on securing the border. I want to change the laws that attract people to come. What happened? They replaced remain in Mexico. If you come to the American border and you turn yourself in, and most of them do, and you apply for asylum, you ask for asylum, what happens? They release you into the country. Your hearing is like years away, and 90% are denied asylum once they have their hearing, but everybody's told once you set foot in America, you never leave. Parole. Parole is meant to be on an individual basis. The DHS director, secretary, under our law, can parole a person into the country for 2 reasons. Undue hardship, compelling reason, I can't remember the term, is humanitarian. And the other is if you have a substantial benefit to our nation. During the 4 years of Trump, 12 people got paroled. With this crowd, 145,000 got paroled in 3 months. They're pencil whipping this, right? So I want to change the law that you cannot allow an individual to come into the country on blanket parole. You have to do an individual assessment, and you got to send to Congress every 30 days the number of people that were paroled and why you let them in. What was the substantial benefit? What was the undue hardship? If you had to explain that, this would stop overnight. Asylum. You can't be released into the country until your case is adjudicated. If you stop releasing them, they'll stop coming. Those are the 2 things that I think will regain control of the border, and Democrats don't want to do that, and we should fight and insist because we're not wrong to do so. The public is with us, folks. Do you agree? The public is with us.
There's approximately, what, 2.4, 2.5 million that we know of? The number, I don't know.
3.6 encounters in fiscal year 23. 600,000 gotaways, 172 people on the terrorist watch list. Now, most people turn themselves in to the first person they see because they want to claim asylum. Those guys and people that are running away, you should be worried about who they are because they don't want to get caught.
So President Trump says that if elected, he will lead the largest deportation operation in our country's history. How's that accomplished? And is that possible?
Yes, just enforce the law. Listen, I have let me just tell you, we're all from somewhere else, right? Unless you're an American Indian. I want rational immigration. I want people to come here on our terms, work when we can't find workers here after we offer good pay. But everybody in the world can't come to America, right? I understand why people want to come, but we can't let everybody come. So the only way you're going to stop people coming is to change policy. And I would support taking people who've come here by the millions and saying, you got to go home. Once you start sending them back, they'll stop coming. Does that make sense? That's not mean. Don't feel embarrassed that the President of the United States would tell people who came here legally, you got to go back. Every other country does it. Have you heard of birthright citizenship? We're the only, well, like 5 countries maybe, I think, that if you have a child in America, that automatically is a citizen. I don't know how to change it, but that's a dumb law too. If you go to France on vacation, your wife has a baby, they're not a French citizen. We're being played for fools, and it needs to end.
Changing the topic a bit, we saw Senator Kennedy questioning a federal judge nominee who could not distinguish. He is, he's good, yes. Could not distinguish the difference between a stay order and an injunction. The question for you, Senator, how many Biden federal judicial nominees have you approved? How many have you disapproved of?
Well, I'll be disapproving ones can't answer those questions. Here's where I'm at with judges. Ginsburg got 96 votes and Scalia got 97. The Constitution, if you look at the advise and consent clause, basically says you should rule out people who are unqualified. You shouldn't vote against somebody because you wouldn't have picked them. This has changed. It started with Clarence Thomas, right, when they tried to ruin his life, Alito and all those folks. So the bottom line is the Democrats have politicized the way we pick judges. I have tried to go back to the constitutional standard. If I think you're qualified, I'll vote for you. The one thing I want to hold on to, and please understand this, why I do what I do. If you're a United States Senator and you don't agree with a White House pick for a judge at the district court level and you don't give your blue slip, they can't be picked. I want to keep that. So when I was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, we had 200 great judges. I'm voting for a lot of district court judges to save the blue slip. The circuit court judges been about 50-50. I grew up this way. I don't know how we get everything we want. They don't get anything they want. Bottom line is we're going to ruin the judiciary if we keep this up. It started with Harry Reid when he changed the rules. So that's just, I'm old school on this, okay?
An 8-week-old infant was placed on secretive terrorist watch list known as the Quiet Skies last week, according to A.J. Fisher, who's a J6 defendant. Part of the Patriot Act regarding FISA warrants, which have been used to unjustly spy on many Americans as potential domestic terrorists, is up for renewal next month. Do you think it's time to rein in the government overreach?
Okay, FISA, do you remember the Russia hoax? Do y'all remember that? Do you remember Carter Page? If he's a Russian agent, then they were deep in their bench. Carter Page was not a Russian agent. And I told people, Trump colluding with the Russians? If you can't collude with your own government, why do you think you're colluding with some foreign government? This made no sense to me. FISA was used to get warrants against Carter Page. So yeah, there needs to be a real streamlining of the process when it comes to an American citizen under the FISA law. Now, having said that, it's a tool we have against terrorists. There's something you haven't heard about, but I'm going to tell you, it's called 702. This is not a warrant, but it's the ability for a foreign citizens, in foreign lands, that we can listen in on what they say. I want to do that. So, FISA reform, yes. 702 reauthorization, yes. I don't see FISA being reauthorized without major changes because what we learned in the Russian hoax. The Carter Page warrant was based on a dossier that was a bunch of BS. And you know what? If that had happened to a Democrat, it'd been all over the news, and it is all we could do to get it on Fox. So, yeah, FISA reform is absolutely necessary after the Russian hoax.
Next question, back on government spending. 7 of 12 appropriation bills have been passed by Congress. Why hasn't the Senate taken them up? Do you think that it could help the Republicans' messaging and image problems by calling for their serious consideration and debate?
Amen. How many of you, you pay us, right? What are we supposed to do up there? There are 12 bills to fund the government. The last time we passed 12 bills that got through the House and Senate at the president's desk was over 20-something years ago. Now, here's what Chuck Schumer's doing. He doesn't want to have 12 bills passed. He wants this train wreck at the end where we do the omnibus bill, where you throw like a big stew. I ain't doing that ever again. I told him, I'm never doing that again. I'm never voting for an omnibus bill. We should do it one bill at a time. Our friends in the House, they need to up their game. Part of the problem is, and Rex will tell you this, the perfect becomes the enemy of the good. When you got 4 or 5 Republican seat majority, you lose 10 Republicans, you can't pass a bill. So we're going to have to learn that an imperfect Republican bill is better than what they're going to do. Get the bills moving so we can have the public understand how the government actually works. Now, here's a question I'm going to ask myself. If you passed every bill and it got signed into law, what percentage of the budget is included in those 12 bills? 26%. 74% of all federal spending is on entitlements, Medicare, Social Security, VA benefits, and interest on the debt. That is the problem we have to solve as a nation. No more omnibus bills, okay? No more, no more.
Next question. Do you have any plans to visit the J6 prisoners to report on their physical conditions and treatment? And do you think they're being held unjustly, and what can be done about it?
Okay, I haven't been, but yeah, I'll be glad to look at that. Everybody deserves due process, right? People you like, people you don't like. I will say this. Due process is a cornerstone of American law. Everybody deserves a lawyer. Everybody deserves to be, have their day in court. Indefinite detention is something we don't allow here, so I'll be glad to look at that. But here's what I'll tell you about January 6th. I was actually there. I can understand being frustrated, but if you go into the Capitol and beat up a cop, not good, okay? You can protest all you want. You can shout, yell. Just don't go beat up cops and, burn down the place. Here's what I believe. We live in a country where they burned down the Portland courthouse. Remember that? And nothing happened. Remember Chicago and New York? And what did we all say? You got to hold people accountable when they take the law in their own hands and they beat the cops up and they burn down the place. Well, I believe that for everybody. So here's what's going on. The election of 2024 comes down to who can make my life better. If you're raising a couple of kids out there, you're worried about putting groceries on the table. You're worried about gas prices. You're worried about what's being taught in school. You're worried about going downtown and maybe getting hurt. The issues that will decide the 2024 election are going to be the quality of life issues in America. Biden's America is a nightmare for people of color. They have suffered more than anybody. So what I hope we'll do, I'll be glad to talk about January 6th defendants and make sure they're treated fairly. But I want to look forward to the 2024 election and tell the American people, you do not have to live this way. You don't have to live in a country where anybody can walk across the street into your country no matter what they're up to. You don't have to pay this much for your gas when we're sitting on oil and gas more than anybody in the world. Does this make sense to you? This is how we win the election. We turn people's lives around. And if Joe Biden gets 4 more years, or Kamala Harris, or Newsom, you won't recognize your country, folks.
Speaker Johnson indicated that he's going to begin releasing the thousands and thousands. I think the number is like 44,000 hours of video
Yes.
from the Capitol area on January the 6th. Have you seen some of that
I hadn't
video?
seen the 44. I've seen a lot of video of what happened on January 6th during impeachment. But what I want to see is all, don't you? I don't want a one-sided story. I want to see everything that happened. And if you think you're wrongly treated, I want to know about that. I want to see it all. Do you like Johnson? I like the guy. You know, he's being beat up like he's some kind of wacko because he believes in the Bible. Like, you know why Republicans like Israel so much? And liberals, all I can say is this. If you watch the American media about Israel, they're the bad guy. If you read the Bible, Israel's the good guy. So, yeah, release it all. Let everybody have access to our courts and get all the evidence pertinent to their case.
Do you expect that there'll be different opinions of what actually happened when we are able to watch?
Well, I know what happened around the Senate. I saw that. But there may be people sitting in jail that shouldn't be sitting in jail. You know, yes, I am for everybody being able to make the case that what you say I didn't do. And give me the evidence. Yeah, absolutely. Why would you want? I don't care what you think about January 6th. Why wouldn't you want everybody to have evidence in their case?
Another question on the budget process. The recent continuing resolution puts off the budget fight for 75 days.
Right.
Federal spending is enslaving American people.
Yep.
Experts at the Heritage Foundation say that the Treasury will be borrowing $2 trillion this year, and $8 trillion of old debt is going to be refinanced at a much higher interest rate, which will cost taxpayers an additional $500 billion. Sales of American debt is no longer considered a safe bet, and it was hard to sell last week. Time is not on our side. The question is, when will we face this and make the hard choices?
You want an honest answer? I don't see any time. What does Trump say? Okay, when you mention Social Security reform, how many of you are on Social Security? All right. Social Security Trust Fund begins to spend more than it takes in 2032. Now, why is that? Can I take a little longer on this one? All right. Medicare and Social Security are two programs that are valuable. Do you agree? Since I'm on them, I agree. In 1935, when Social Security first came into being, there were 30 workers for every retiree. When I was born in the 50s, there were 16. Now there are 3 workers for every retiree, and in 20 years there'll be 2. More people are taken out than putting in. Now, how do you fix it? Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill in 1983 adjusted the age of retirement from 65 to 67 for Social Security. We probably need to do that one more time. People in my income level need to pay more into Medicare because it's heavily subsidized. Now, when I was 21 and 22, we had nothing. Nothing. Businesses went bankrupt. My parents died, moved in, aunt and uncle. If it weren't for Pell Grants, my sister wouldn't have gone to college. I am doing fine. I will pay more into the system if it helps people behind me get through. We're going to have to make some hard decisions, and we're going to need presidential leadership. When you look at the pie chart of why we're so deep in debt, it's that Medicare and Social Security, because of the retirement of the baby boomers, is going to flood the system. The discretionary budget, the 12 bills we've been talking about, now make up 26% of all federal spending. Listen to this. By 2032, all the money we take in taxes will go to entitlements, and there'll be no money left for the military, none of it, because the baby boomers are growing so fast. That means that people like me and Rex have got to find a way to do what Reagan O'Neill did. Adjust these systems to make them more sustainable. I know you're frustrated without government spending, but the real driver of the debt is the average person takes out 3 times more than they put in Medicare. And we're going to have to get people in the upper income levels to level that out. Does that make sense? And we're going to have to allow doctors to do things to keep us well. You need more medical choices. You know, the government wants to own you from cradle to grave. That's what socialized medicine's about. We need to open up Medicare to better ideas where you can choose a plan that fits you better than maybe the guy down the street. This is a threat to the Democratic hold on us. They want to own you from the day you're born to the day you die. They hate these 401k plans that make you financially independent of Social Security. What should the Republicans do? Increase the ability to save by working. Make sure that's all. You don't have to depend on Social Security only when you retire. The only way we're going to break the cycle of this dependency on the government is to allow people to invest and save apart from Social Security during their working years. And the only way you're ever going to fix the medical problems we have in this country is to open up the medical system to choice, to have more options. And if you smoke and you have bad lifestyle choices, you pay more.
While we're talking about health care, and it seems like every time Karine Jean-Pierre is asked a question behind the White House podium, she always brings up Medicare as a trying to scare people, basically. But back on health care, that is an important issue. We saw this past session, the senator, our legislature repealed certificate of need. Hopefully, we're going to see more options in health care. Is there something, and good job, thank you, Senator, that's big. And if you're not familiar with that, we're going to see some more choices.
Like, can I just jump right in here? Certificate of need is the government telling the community what you need.
My simple explanation, Senator, that I use for my listeners is it's like McDonald's having to ask Burger King if they can build across the street from them.
How many of you believe in competition? Okay, how many of you ever asked what it costs to go to the doctor? I don't think I've ever. I don't go, hey, doc, I just assume the insurance company's going to pay it or somebody's going to pay it. We need to make us stakeholders. Like if you're working in the private sector and you have a $5,000 deductible, that helps the company, bottom line. But why don't we give you some tax credits where you can pay your deductible, but have people compete for your business? The Graham-Cassidy bill was the biggest idea in healthcare, and I want to say it was mine, and I'm going to brag on myself here a minute. I wanted to block grant it all back to the states. Not Medicare, but I wanted to take all of these programs that we spend money on in Washington, come up with a formula and send it back to states, governors and state houses, and see which one could come up with the best idea. If we don't do that, we're never going to fix this problem. So to me, block grants in education. Instead of spending all this money on the Department of Education in Washington, why don't we block grant it back to people in the states? And I guarantee you, on the healthcare side, some governor and state house will figure out how to lower cost. One of the things you got to quit doing is if you go to the emergency room every night because you're lonely, we need to stop that. There's one lady in Chicago that spent $1 million on emergency room care. I really believed if you had a $25 copayment, a lot of this would stop. I don't want to deny anybody, but you got to have some sense of responsibility. The key to health care, the key to education is to get the money and the power out of Washington back closer to where people live. Because under all these big healthcare systems, I don't even know who to complain to. But if you had the money back here, I could complain to me or Rex. We could go to the hospital and hold them accountable. We came within one vote of taking federal health care dollars putting it in a block grant based on population and a fair formula and sending the money back to the states. Until the day I die, I'm going to push that idea. We will never have an efficient healthcare system that's a command and control socialist healthcare system. It's got to be closer to the taxpayer. It's got to be closer to the doctor and to the patient.
President Joe Biden celebrated a big birthday yesterday. Actually, I'm not sure he celebrated a lot. That's one he probably would have wished had gone unnoticed. 81 years old. What concerns do you have about the president's ability to complete another 4-year term?
I've known him for 30 years. You see it for yourself, right? So here's what I do like. I like the people deciding, right? It's really up to us as voters. If you think he's too old, and if you think he's not with it, then you need to do something about it. Trump's worst critic cannot say he doesn't have energy. He has more energy than he probably actually needs. The bottom line is, in a democracy, folks, we have to take care of some things ourselves. God gave us free will, right? He made a decision to allow us to have free will. This is a republic, not a democracy, right? But the voter decides. And I don't have a good answer other than the best filter is the American people's good judgment. Now, I'll say this. If we don't win now, when are we going to win? I mean, the country is in a ditch. And it's clear to me that President Biden is struggling. And I don't say that with any joy in my heart, but when he goes into the Chinese Communist Xi, I don't think that's the best guy on the field. So there's the 25th Amendment that you can disqualify somebody because they're, not capable of serving, but I don't see that being used. At the end of the day, a lot of these problems come down to you and me as a voter. And I like that because I wouldn't want to live in a country where I couldn't decide those things.
The Republican National Committee to celebrate the president's birthday yesterday released a 2-minute video. You probably have seen it. It's quite comical, but it's scary at the same time to know that this is the leader of the free world.
Okay, I'm a United States. I have to watch what I say because this can be picked up in Russia. Do you understand how all these machines work? I just got back from Israel, and Biden's done a good job standing behind Israel, but he did a lousy job standing up for Israel. You need to stop this before it starts. Do you think it's an accident all these wars are going on at the same time? Getting out of Afghanistan was a bad idea. What did it do? It set in motion all the bad guys think, hey, this guy's weak and he's not really with it. So you see Russia going into Ukraine. I've never done that with Trump. I can say this. I believe to the bottom of my heart if Donald Trump were president, Putin would not have invaded Ukraine. I believe with all my heart Hamas would not have done this. During his entire presidency, there are very few attacks. He kills Soleimani. The evil here, the great Satan's Iran. It's the religious Iranian Ayatollah. There is no Hamas without Iran. So I worry that they look and see these 2-minute videos like you do. I worry that if Putin gets away with dismembering the Ukraine, there goes Taiwan. One thing is connected to the other. 80% of all the chips in the world are made in Taiwan. That's the new oil and gas. I worry very much that Hezbollah is going to open up another front in the north on Israel, and they got over 100,000 precision-guided rockets that overwhelms Iron Dome. I worry about that. I worry about an American soldier dying tonight because Joe Biden can't stand up to the Ayatollah. We've had 60-something attacks since October the 7th. We responded 4 times. If Trump were president, they'd be blowing up Iranian oil fields as I speak. That's the only thing these people understand. So we live in a very dangerous time. So these 2-minute videos, yeah, they worry me a lot. That will entice the bad guys. So what I need to do, I need to help President Biden where I can, but I need to tell him, don't get too full of yourself because help is on the way. I'm on the floor of the Senate every night saying, if you kill one American in Iraq and Syria, we're coming after you. The Ayatollah. Their whole economy is built on oil. The soft underbelly of the Iranian economy is oil production. I don't want to invade Iran. I just want to blow up all their oil refineries. Put them out of business. The largest state sponsor of terrorism would go broke tomorrow. And they would stop this if they believed we would do what I say. If Donald Trump wins, I'm sure it'll be the same for DeSantis. You just pick your person. But I know if Donald Trump wins, this will stop the next day. Remember they released the hostages when Reagan won? The next day. I know this sounds weird, but it's true. If you want stability in the world, vote for Trump.
There's a theory.
Preaching, I'm sorry.
There-
This gets me going.
Preach on, brother. There's a theory that Joe Biden actually will not be on the ticket next November.
I hear that. Do y'all hear that a lot?
Yes. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, let's play this theory out. You're the president of the United States. Somebody comes up to you and says, you need to move on. How do you get him to quit? Now, what would it be like to go tell a sitting president of your own party you need to leave? You got the 25th Amendment. If you can't use that, you're appealing to his political instincts. I think he'll tell you go take a hike. If you got rid of him as a Democrat, who do you get next? No, you skipped over one. Harrison, Kamala. She's worse. Okay, let's go to what you just said, Gavin Newsom. You go tell the first female African-American vice president you need to leave. We got this white guy in California that's going to take your place. This ain't easy. They got more problems than we do. We got Trump, and you know what you're getting with him, the good and the bad and everything else. We got DeSantis, we got Haley, we got a lot of good people out there. We're in good shape because I think our top 3 candidates could beat him, don't you? Now, if you told him to leave as a Democrat, you'd blow the Democratic Party wide open. And, I pray for his health like I pray for your health. We're a good country here. I don't want anything bad to happen to President Biden, but the American people believe he's not up to another 4 years. Right? Well, how do you get rid of him? I mean, just think about how hard. Does this make sense what I'm saying? They have a world of hurt here. We're going to win this election if we don't screw it up.
We continue to learn more and more about the Biden family business, if you will, and the 10% for the big guy. We know who the big guy is. So your question, how do you get rid of him? Is there a possibility?
I tell you, I don't. In the Senate, are you going to get 67 votes for what the House does? No, but the House should keep looking, right? I love Jim Jordan, Comer, all these guys. Can you imagine if Don Jr. had done any of this? I mean, remember the Russian hoax? We were told every day that Trump was colluding with, you know who was colluding with the Russians? Clinton. That's where the dossier came from. But you didn't hear much about that. So the Hunter Biden business, how many of you have a shell company? I thought
Or multiple shell companies.
Well, I thought they were talking about a gas station, So this doesn't pass the smell test, does it? So if you're Joe Biden and your job as vice president is to clean up the corruption in Ukraine, and you don't know your own son is on the Burisma board, you've missed a lot. One of the most corrupt companies at the time in all of Ukraine. You can't make this up. The media gives them a complete pass. If it weren't for Jim Jordan and the House guys, we wouldn't know any of this. But let me tell you what's happened, Joey. Let me tell you what's happened here. The American people, by over 60%, believe that these business deals are not kosher. So it's had an effect. And I keep telling the House, go wherever the evidence takes you.
Changing the subject back to the war in Israel, new security camera footage released in the last couple of days of the hospital in Gaza shows that the Hamas terrorists literally moving civilians in and out. Medical center is their command center.
Okay, how many of you believe that if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it? Okay, I'll get to Hamas here in a minute. This administration is now releasing $10 billion of gas revenue to the Iranians from Iraq. We're paying. You know what I learned in the pool room? If a guy's threatening to cut your throat, don't buy him a knife. We're literally paying people to kill us. So oil prices are high because we won't drill, right? We could lower oil prices tomorrow if we would find our own oil. Who does that hurt the most? Russia and Iran. Now, where does Russia get all their weapons from? The Iranians. Who buys all the Iranian oil? The Chinese. Who gives shells to the Russians? The North Koreans. So, back to Hamas. We have been giving billions of dollars to the Palestinians, and all of it went underground in tunnels. The hospital has been weaponized by Hamas. I've been a military lawyer most of my adult life. Houses of worship, medical facilities are off limits under the law of war unless you weaponize them. So if you store ammunition in a mosque, it's now a legitimate target. If you have a command and control center under a hospital, it's now a legitimate target. What I can't get over, within 6 weeks of the attack, where a couple thousand Hamas terrorists invade Israel, put babies in ovens, rape women in front of their children, kill children in front of their parents. The world is talking about Israel is doing too much. I don't want innocent people to die, but in World War II, if you had told us to have a ceasefire with the Japanese, we'd run you out of town. If you had Adolf Hitler under a hospital, we would have not thought twice about blowing up the hospital. So Israel is in a world of hurt. Reverend, the times in which we live, our Jewish brothers and sisters, there's an animosity I haven't seen at the United Nations. God is with Israel. And if we're with Israel, God will be with us. So the weaponization of this hospital is real. Israel is going way out of its way to reduce civilian casualties. I just got off the phone before I came here to my friends in Israel. If there's a ceasefire, Hamas will regroup. There's going to be a pause because of the hostages. But folks, if we don't allow Israel to destroy Hamas, terrorism will be on steroids. You can't ask these people to live in fear of another attack, can you? You can't do that. Whatever it takes, as long as it takes, whatever you need, you're going to get. And as to the Palestinian people, I hope you have a better life, but here's the problem. I'm willing to offer you a better life, but when children from birth all through their adult years are told that Jews are the enemy, you know how they teach math in Gaza? If you had 10 Jews and you killed 6, how many would you have left? This is in their textbooks. I've seen the textbooks. The Germans and the Japanese radicalized their populations. If we had not destroyed Germany and Japan, the war would never ended. And we stayed there to make sure it didn't come back. Here's what Israel's facing. After they destroy Hamas, they got to deal with a radicalized population. That means we need to come up with a structure to offer a better life to the Palestinians, but also realize that Israel's security is the number one goal here. We say never again, but it did happen. I was in Israel on the 80th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising this year. In 1943, the Jews in Warsaw fought back. They all got killed, but they fought back. And they celebrated that uprising. If you had told me within months of that uprising, the largest killing of the Jewish people since World War II would have occurred in Israel, I wouldn't have believed it. The people I am talking about, Hamas, have a view of religion where God condones what they're doing in their own mind. That raping a woman is not a crime or a sin as long as it's done in the name of God. These people are nuts. I want to keep them over there so they can't come here.
I have been blessed to have gone to Israel 3 times. I was scheduled to go for my 4th literally 10 days before this broke out. My friend and colleague Mike Gallagher was invited last week to the Israeli embassy in D.C. to watch some actual video footage of Hamas. Have you seen the?
Yeah, I went over 5 days after. I took 10 United States senators to Saudi Arabia. Now, what precipitated this? Saudi Arabia is the keeper of the Mecca, right? The major holy sites in Islam are in Saudi. The Crown Prince, all I can tell you is the Khashoggi thing was terrible, but he's doing things I didn't think anybody would do. Women can drive. Believe it or not, that's progress, right? And I told him, if women drive, the burqa's got to go because you can't drive with that thing. You're going to kill a lot of people. So he's allowing women to go out without a male escort. Things are changing in Saudi Arabia. He's spending $1 trillion to modernize his economy. I've been there 4 times working with the Biden administration to set up a way for him to recognize Israel. Can you imagine the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia recognizing the one and only Jewish state? That's the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict. And I want to help Biden get there. The Abraham Accords by Trump made this possible. The Arabs saw in Trump somebody they could trust that would stand up to Iran, and they recognized Israel. The next big shoe to drop in the Mideast is Saudi Arabia. Why did they attack on October the 7th? There was a big conference in Tel Aviv on October the 8th of all these countries coming together to do business. You'll never convince me this wasn't done to stop the effort of Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel, because that would leave Iran in the dust. So that's what's behind this, I think. So I'm going back again in January. I'm taking evangelical Christians with me to Saudi Arabia. The best friend of Israel and all of America is evangelical Christians. Do you agree with that? Well, let me tell you, we need to help Saudi Arabia come up with the courage to do this deal to end the conflict between the Arabs and the Israelis. That's what's behind all of this. And if we can close that deal, it will change the Mideast forever. And if we don't, if this Ayatollah continues to get money we give him, and he gets a nuclear weapon, he'll use it. The Arabs are not going to allow the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon unless they have one. We're on the verge of a pathway to Armageddon if we don't watch it. A nuclear-armed Mideast can happen in our lifetime. And the way to avoid that is to get the Arabs to reconcile with the Jewish state, isolating the Ayatollah. I pray for the Iranian people. They're very cultured, they're very educated. But a young lady was taken off a bus who's 16 years old because she wasn't wearing her headscarf, and they beat her till she was brain dead.
There's a question back on the funding that we, and support that we provide to Israel. Question, are you on board with the Senate refusing to approve aid to Israel without a package deal that would include Ukraine as well?
I'm not going to give any money to Israel or Ukraine until we secure our border. There is no stronger supporter of Israel, I think, in the Senate than me. And I say that only because the Israelis say that. I really believe this. As a little boy going to Baptist church, I was taught what y'all were taught, right? So Israel's a democracy. They're the best friend we have in sharing intelligence regarding radical Islamic activity against us. We owe it to them to be their best friend. Ukraine. They gave up 1,700 nuclear weapons at the end of the Cold War, doing a deal with Russia saying, you won't invade us, we'll give up our nukes. That didn't turn out too well, did it? Bottom line is, the border security has to be part of that package. It's $14 billion for Israel. The package for Ukraine, most of it is us buying new weapons, replacing the old ones we've given them, so most of it goes into our economy. But I'm not going to do any of this until we secure your border, our border. And to my Democratic friends, how do you argue with that? I don't believe they can. We just need to hang in there. Does that make sense? Don't give an inch on this.
You mentioned earlier, Senator, if the Democrats were to win next year, some of the pain that's in store for us. You mentioned additional states, D.C. potentially becoming a state. Talk with us about that and what would...
That's not good. Have you been to D.C.? Okay, listen. They would use, remember Kavanaugh? Okay, the reason I was so upset is I voted for their judges, and here you are destroying this guy's life. You know, about some party in high school nobody can remember. I mean, the depth of low got to be incredible. They want power too much. They want it to a fault. They're willing to turn the checks and balances of our Constitution upside down. They're willing to make the Senate the House. Do y'all have the filibuster rule in the Senate, Rex? Aren't you glad you have it every now and then? It keeps us from doing crazy things probably on both sides. They'll get rid of that. They'll make D.C. a state and they'll make Puerto Rico a state. That's 4 Democratic senators probably for a very long time, maybe forever. The Electoral College. It allows small states like us to have a say who's going to be the next president. They'll abolish that. The Supreme Court, that's been 50 years in the making, overnight becomes a liberal court at 13. They talk about us being radical as Republicans. They would nationalize how you vote. They would allow abortion of a baby literally up to the moment of birth with no exceptions. We're not radical. They're radical. And we need to do a better job of explaining to the American people what kind of country you're going to get if you allow these people to win.
Your colleague in the Senate, Senator Dianne Feinstein, passed away recently. There's, I don't know, 10 or so members of Congress and the U.S. Senate that are 80 and above. You and I were talking earlier about our beloved Strom Thurmond, served till he was 100. What do you think about age limits and term limits for both the Senate and the U.S. House?
What do y'all think? You like that? Sure. What's a good age? 80? Okay. So let me tell you about Strom. How many of you remember Strom Thurmond? What? Yeah, because he'd be effective. I was born in 55. Strom was elected in 54. He was in the Senate for 48 years. At the end, he definitely slowed down. But all those years, he made a case to you. You were his page, right? I mean, it's just think about what I said. The guy was elected, I took his place, he was elected the year before I was born. Don't worry about me doing that. I'm genetically term limited. I'm not going to make it anywhere that long. But I guess what I would say is, it goes back to Biden. Do you trust the voters to make these decisions? I do. You know, you got to have some system, right? You can make it a hard number. You may lose some quality people. You know, all I'm saying is, I'm for term limits if everybody else does it. I'm not for term limits where we do it by ourselves. And if you want to pick an age you think is too old to serve, I'll entertain that. But I just think the best way to handle this is just trust the voter.
One of the things that, as a late teen, I think I was probably 18, 19 or so when I was up in the senator's office. He was very effective getting things done, solving problems, particularly for our veterans. Question from one of our friends in Anderson. Talk with us about your office and how you can assist veterans when they need assistance.
Call us. I work for you. First rule of my office, we work. I love the people in my office. Senator Thurmond was the gold standard on taking care of people. I have tried to get things done for our state. I had to go to Harry Reid and ask him to help me get money for the Charleston port, and he did, because I helped him for a thing he needed. How many of you are married? Do you believe in give and take? Well, if you're married, you do. So the bottom line is, it's a give and take world. I pride myself on being a Republican that can talk to a Democrat to make sure we get what we need and deserve here in South Carolina. The best way to help your port is to help somebody else with theirs. Strom Thurmond was the master of this. I will do everything I can when you come into my office to get you a just result. Sometimes it may not be possible, but we will try. If you're a veteran, I think, Rex, you send people all the time. Van, I got all my staff here tonight. Constituent service is as important to me as anything else I do. Can I help you with your Social Security? Can I get you a passport? You know what I've learned? People pay a lot of money to go on a trip, and they don't realize you need a passport. Smart people. So I just want to reinforce this. If you're a veteran and you come to our office and you have a problem with TRICARE, you can't get into the VA, you can't get an evaluation as whether or not you're disabled, we will push your case. We can't tell them what to do, but we can tell them to serve you quickly. I pride myself on the fact that my staff in this state, I think, is the best in the state of taking care of your needs. And that, to me, is as important as anything I'll ever do. And I learned that from Senator Thurmond. And we're going to be that way as long as I'm here.
And Kevin, you got a couple of your
I
staff
got Kevin
Stand-
here.
stand-
I got
stand up, be
Edward.
ready.
I
Yes.
got two Kevins. He does my stuff in Pendleton. We got an office in Pendleton for this part of the world. Pendleton's got it going on for Pickens, Oconee, and Anderson. Go to Pendleton. We got an office in Greenville. We got one in Columbia. We got one in Florence, Charleston. We got them all over the place. Call us. Don't be shy.
One more thing, a story that I've told many times over the years, as far as my experience with Senator Thurmond. When I was up there that summer, it was the Billy Gate summer. Remember the Billy Carter hearings?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So Ted Kennedy was chairman of the Judiciary. Senator Thurmond was the ranking member. And I would go over with the senator to those hearings every morning. Quite often, he and Senator Kennedy would ride the little subway over to the building together. And they're talking about all the things that they're working together on. I need your help on this, or I need your help on that. Do you still see that? Do you think there's...
The younger people less. You don't get rewarded for solving, compromise can be hard sell to people at times, but let me tell you where we all in. How many of you have how many of you use Facebook or Meta, whatever they call it? How many of you are worried about what's on these platforms affecting your children? You ought to be. I'm working with Dick Durbin. He's got 4 grandkids. The number of sexual predators out there on these websites grooming your children is beyond my imagination. The number of pornography sites out there. You can't sue if they take your content down. So I had a lady come into the committee. Her daughter was on a social media site. She was being bullied. She called the company 2 times and said, listen, can you protect my daughter from all this incoming? And under the terms of use, Jody, they said it was a non-bullying site. They did nothing, and she killed herself. So there's a group of parents out there who've lost their children to suicide. They went to court, and they were kicked out of court because of Section 230. Section 230 allowed the internet to start where an internet provider is not responsible for the content. They can't be sued for what's on their sites. Those days are over. These people are the largest companies in the history of the world. They can take your content down, and you have no recourse. You can be a conservative, and they can shoot you down, and there's nobody you can appeal to. You can be a parent worried about what's going on with your child, and you complain, and nothing happens. So I think you ought to be able to sue them, or we need some agency licensing them, and if they don't do well, take their license away. This is out of control, and it needs to stop. So I'm big into that. I want to find a way forward to take the largest companies in the history of the world and either regulate them or open up the door of the courthouse to consumers. Americans are having their lives ruined. There's nothing you can do about this. That's going to take bipartisanship. And here's the good news. My bill has every Democrat on it and all but 1 Republican.
We talked earlier, of course, about the crisis at our southern border from a standpoint of illegals coming into our country. Let's talk for a minute about some of the other things that are coming into our country, like drugs.
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl. In a recent article, Newsweek said that for those who follow drug use trends, 1979, according to Newsweek, was the high water mark of dangerous and illegal drug use. We have surpassed those numbers by nearly 20% now because of fentanyl. What's the solution? And obviously we got to close the border, but how do we
Put
keep
people in jail that sell this stuff. Up the penalties. What did Trump do? He stopped, in December of 2020, we had the lowest crossings in recorded 40-year history because of remaining in Mexico and other stuff. Today, we have the most out-of-control border we've ever had. Fentanyl is coming in to the point it's the #1 killer of young people in this country. Just a speck of this stuff could kill everybody in here. There's a organization, a police organization in Charleston County, I think it was, that seized enough fentanyl to kill everybody in South Carolina. So change your drug laws, up your punishment, tell China, if you keep poisoning our kids, we're going to put tariffs on your product. Tell Mexico that we're going to blow up the labs. You know what I think? I've got a bill to authorize the use of force against fentanyl drug labs in Mexico. We're losing every 3 days the equivalent of a 9/11. Over 100,000 people died from fentanyl. What would we do to a country that killed 100,000 Americans? We'd go to war with them, wouldn't we? So what I want to do, I want to go to war with the fentanyl people. I want to, if we know where their drug labs are in Mexico, blow them up. If the Mexican government won't help you. We got to stop sitting on the sidelines and watching our kids get poisoned.
a question submitted, Senator, of how you manage to deal with people who are critical of your service in the Senate. And seriously, how do you keep it from, how do you not take it personal? This question said that one of the responses when the invitation was sent out was, I'll attend when he starts voting and acting like a Republican.
I think I'm a darn good Republican. I think I'm a really good national security, Ronald Reagan, peace through strength Republican. I think I'm the leader of the pro-life movement in the United States Senate. I think I'm good on guns. I'm tough on crime, but I do like solving problems. I wouldn't want to live in a country where I couldn't get criticized. So there are times it does bother you, yeah. But here's the trade-off. Nobody made me do this. I did it because I want to. Think I'm good at it. Think I'm getting better at it. Bottom line is, it's part of the job. Right, Rex? And you can say what you want to about me, but I can push back too. I don't take a lot of garbage if I think it's garbage. I'm a pretty direct kind of guy. You know, I can't believe, you know, this has happened to me. I'm not afraid of the job. The first thing you got to do in politics is not be afraid of the job. If you're afraid of it, you're not any good to anybody. I don't try to convert people who I know is never going to agree with me. I said, listen, me and you're on the wrong. Find somebody you can support. Good luck, because I'm running. I'm not afraid to be disagreed with. I do believe I owe you an explanation. And at the end of the day, I'm not your kind of guy. Thank God you didn't pick somebody else. I believe in democracy, don't y'all? I mean, I've been around in the Senate since 2002. And here's what I think I have to offer, and I don't mean to, I think I know the world pretty well. I know where all the bad guys are and who the real good guys are. I know that if we don't get Israel right, they're coming after us. I know that radical Islam would kill everybody in. We got any Presbyterians here? Well, you're predestined to be here. Glad to have you. We got any Methodists? Baptist? Well, a Methodist is a Baptist that can read. So I'm a Baptist. They'd kill everybody here. Do you get that? We're in a religious war. Nobody will, I will tell you what motivates. This is not about where you draw property lines or about who owns the lake. It's about there's no place for you if you don't bend to their will and worship God under the radical Islamic view of religion. 9/11, we didn't have one soldier in Afghanistan on September the 10th. We didn't have an embassy. We didn't give $1 of aid to Afghanistan. They came after us anyway because they hate you. They've been taught to hate us. All Muslims don't hate us. There are plenty of them fighting these guys. They're the biggest victims of radical Islam, is people who reject their way of doing business for their daughter. I promise you, there are a lot of fathers and mothers don't want their daughters to live the way Hamas wants them to live. You know, Saudi Arabia has a 2030 vision. Hamas has 1130 vision. The Ayatollah wants to purify Islam. I asked the Saudi crown prince, if he had one bomb, who would he use it on? You, me, or Bibi? And he said, me. I said, well, I think he'd use me. And Bibi thinks it'd be him. Well, if he had 3, he'd kill us all. Do you believe that? I can't convince enough people that this war is fundamentally about how you live. They literally want to take your life over. They want you to live under a religious doctrine that none of us will accept. Israel is surrounded by these people. Let's work with the people in the faith that we can live with. I want to fight them over there, not here. I want to do it with partners, not by ourselves. Everybody thinks I'm some kind of warmonger. No, I am not. I'm a security guy. I'm not going to lie to you about how to be safe. There is no way to deal with radical Islam if we're all sitting here on our hands. You got to be in their backyard, hitting them before they hit you. And you got to help people that will live in peace with you. And when Putin tries to take somebody's country, it's not his, you better stand up because other people are looking and see what they should do next. My number one job is to find ways to protect you and your family, to have a military that's not woke, to have a military that's fit to fight tonight. I'm not looking for a fair fight. I'm looking for an overwhelming military capability to deter war. And if you want to fight, you're going to lose it. This has stood the test of time, folks. At home, I want a capitalist economy where you can actually fail and get up and try again. The Democrats want an outcome. I want a fair chance. They want to rig the game. I want to give you a chance to dream big and go for it. And if you fall short, get up and do it again. I want an education system where you learn what you need to get a job, not to be indoctrinated in some kind of political cause. I want people to go on the sports field fairly. No animosity to anybody, but I don't want young girls having to play with young men who decide to transition last year. This is not right. So I think I'm a good conservative. I think I'm an effective senator. I think I can get things done because I will work with the other side. But this ain't about me. My time will come and go. Only God knows how much longer I got on this earth, and it's up to the voters if I stay in this job. It is about your country. To the young people out there, if you're thinking about running for office, do it. People yell at me, people call me. That's one side. I get to do things I never dreamed of. I get to meet people I would never meet otherwise. I get to go to Israel and show up, and when they see me, they say, "There's Lindsey. Thank God he's here." The criticism comes with the job, but I can tell you the opportunity to serve you in Washington and try to create a country that we all agree we deserve is worth every bad thing anybody says about me. I am lucky to have this job. I'm not afraid of losing this job. And the worst thing I can do to you is lie about what I believe because I think somebody will get mad at me. I'm never going to do that. Now, all of you here because you chose to be. You know how hard it is for me to get my message out? Most of the time I go someplace that's half empty. Y'all are Republicans in the upstate of South Carolina. When I first got elected to the State House, I was the first Republican elected from Oconee County since 1877. I was the first congressman elected in the 3rd Congressional District since 1877. I'm the first new senator you've had in 38 years because people help me. There may be a lot of self-made men in politics and women. I am not one of them. I would not have won in Oconee County if it had not been for Mr. Baker, who was the party chairman at the time, believing I could actually win. We'd never done it before. Now, let's end on this note. We own it all. We've done well because Democrats have just gone too crazy. You know what I worry about? That we fight with ourselves to the point that we begin to lose. Conservatism and finding common ground are not inconsistent. To the Republican Party, please don't lose sight of the big prize. What they will do with your country is unbelievable. I may not do everything you want, but I see life more like you than they do. I believe the unborn have a voice. I believe in freedom. And Ladies and gentlemen, in Pickens and Oconee and Anderson County, we've got it all. I don't think there's a Democrat left in the State House, is there? Be careful. Don't lose it. Look what's happening in North Carolina. Look what's happening in Georgia. Be careful. Don't lose it. Be grateful. God is good. This is Thanksgiving. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Senator.